Good morning, first additional language and home language. Welcome to my PGCE lecture 2 in week 1. My first was the orientation and welcome video. This is on principles of teaching English and learning English in the classroom. Let me get this all right. So welcome and good morning. I don't know what time of day it is while you're watching this, but this is the second canned event for this week 1. I think next week might be the face-to-face live Zoom session. So let me just get started and just share my screen with you so I can get my PowerPoint up and running. Here we go. Share the slideshow. Yes, and now we've got all the branding of Stadio Education, the colors. I'm sure you're going to be aware of these lovely rainbow colors that are part of the branding. And this is my first lecture, official lecture. It's the principles of English teaching and learning and the methodologies. There's going to be 7 that I'm going to go through, which are going to form the basis of the approaches we're going to be using for teaching English in the first additional class or the home language. These practices are used in both classes. I've got my cat here, and she's sort of wanting my kitten. She wants to sit on my laptop. Her name is Tonks from Harry Potter. Okay, so this is week 1, English teaching methodologies. So again, this is all in the orientation and welcome video as well, but again, it's my information for my 4 courses that I'm teaching. What do you need to know? You need to know that my name is Marcel Heron, and you can always find me in my mailbox at marcelh@stadio.ac.za. So if you've got any queries, just pop an email, a short one, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Again, I also said this in my opening and welcome video. Learning is fun, and especially learning English is fun, and teaching English is fun as well. I'm hoping you're feeling as excited as these students when you walk into the English classroom or when your learners walk into your classroom. These are the prescribed books, was also in the orientation video recording, and it's the Department of Basic Education CAPS document, which I've uploaded on Canvas for you on our LMS, but it's also Ferreira. Yes, and the Ferreira, although it's 2009, I haven't found a more current teaching English textbook, but Ferreira is really good with most of the skills you need to teach English and lots of practical examples as well. The recommended reading is Roy Klee. Here we go. He's got a lovely account of the CAPS document and strategies for teaching various things. So it's not only for English that you'll find this textbook good, it's for all content languages or content subjects. So you can actually go and look what he says about the CAPS document, and it's appropriate for maths literacy, physical science, anything that you are teaching as well. There's the Anna Ferreira textbook. There is the Clean textbook. Remember, it is recommended, but I do recommend as well for you to purchase if you can. And then the CAPS document, which you can go and download from Canvas LMS for your own personal copy. We're going to refer to this all the time, and next week we will be looking at the CAPS document in more detail. Just a little overview of the online tracking events that we're going to do weekly. Every week I will give feedback on how many people have actually been doing this online tracking. There's going to be 10 of them. That's going to count towards your participation mark at the end, which is 10%. So it makes quite a good idea to actually work through them. And basically it's always based on what we did that week. So it's 10 multiple choice questions or discussion forum based on the topic covered in the class. As you can see, I also put the total number of students. I'm not too sure how many FETs or SPs there are for home language and first additional language. I did a tally this morning. It's about 253 taking all those courses, but that could double as well. As you can see, I'm always happy when there's black figures. That means more than 3/4 of you have done the tasks. And I feel a bit more upset when it's red. So I do differentiate. Please try and keep up with them. They just will take you about, I'd say, half an hour, maybe 15 minutes to get through it. And it goes away, and you can then know that you've got marks in the frying pan for your participation mark. the first one for this week is quite nice. It's just a reflection task where you're going to write a short little 500-word introduction so I know something about you when I see your name on that class list. Okay, so this is the roundup of the introduction welcome from the beginning of this week. There's a Menti that you asking you how you're feeling. There's 3 words you can put in about how you're possibly feeling. Could be anything from anxious to happy to excited to scared to cross, whatever it is. But just put those 3 words in and I'll give you the results the following week. And there's also a little Kahoot quiz, which is also multiple choice based on my introduction and welcome video. I think that closes on the 22nd. No, the Menti closes on the 22nd of March, and I think that closes a bit later. So it's anonymous, I won't know what it is, but you will see your names and the results come through. Right, and then as I mentioned just now, your online first tracking task is a reflection task of 500 words. I have asked you to put a picture of yourself on if you're not scared to put in a selfie of yourself or something. But if you don't want to do it, rather just put an icon or an image that you think best represents you. I might say a cat. Okay, so this is just looking quickly at what the teaching methodologies are for Unit 1. This is the first part. I think it follows for 3 weeks. And tonight we're going to look at principles for language learning and teaching. This is Ferreira's chapters 1 and 2. You'll find information relating to this. And these are the other topics we will cover under Unit 1. Curriculum documents, as I said, will be next week. And then we're going to look at a bit of methodologies, communicative language teaching. And then we're going to go on to lesson plan after that, because that's for your second assignment. Okay, and that brings you to the classroom as a happy teacher, teaching all those past tense verbs. I know a lot of you love grammar teaching. And if you look at this teacher, she looks quite happy to be in the classroom. So let's just see, what kind of teacher are you? If you go to Ferreira page 4, she lists the characteristics of good teachers. I'm just going to mention a few. It's a teacher that's consistent, that doesn't change from one day to the next. The students are not surprised at the difference in the person, but it's also a teacher who's got a good sense of humor, that it's fun going to learn in her class or his class. Interestingly, it's also a teacher that's aware of the cultural diversity of the students in her class, as well as the fact that not all students are English first language students. In our classroom, especially for first additional language, many of the students are going to be second or third language speakers of English. And to be aware of that, to be aware of different learning styles. So a lot is expected in a teacher. So let's see what kind of teacher you are. Are you a teacher that's always angry, frustrated, stressed, and overwhelmed? How do you think that goes down in the classroom? Some old school teachers think that that's a good teacher. So if you're looking cross like this all the time, how would you like to learn in a classroom if someone's always got their finger up or their ruler? Or what about someone that is maybe always tired or exhausted, apathetic? Look at the effect of this kind of teacher on the students. I mean, they're yawning, they're bored, they're not taking much notice of what's going on in the classroom. Or are you a teacher that goes on and on and on, very teacher-centered? You don't give your students a chance to talk or participate. Wow, you go on, and they're in Charlie Brown's classroom. I think it's Lucy who says, "Psst, are you getting any of this? No one's getting anything." Or are you the joyful, happy, motivated, proud, enthusiastic type of teacher, which is a joy and fun to come to your classroom? You interact with your students, you allow them to participate, you've got a good sense of humor, you embrace them all, you're consistent in your mannerism, you're fair in your testing, all those things. And this makes it quite an exciting place in your classroom. This is not only for teaching English, any course that you're teaching, from history to geography, to technical science, to whatever it might be, technology. All right, so identify your teaching style. Are you like the first person there? There's group work, books are opened, students are putting up their hands, she's inquiring them, she's getting answers from them. Or are you this lecture type student, a lecture type teacher who stands in the front, your finger up, students are all sitting in long rows, and some of them got some things in front of them, but they don't really look like they're participating. Okay, so this is the outline for today's lecture. or learning event. We're going to look quickly at the CAPS learning outcomes. Then we look at the 7 principles about teaching language using TEFFs, not in isolation, to teach skills in an integrated manner. I'm going to explain all of this. There we are. We're going to have the listening, the speaking, the reading, and the writing. We put them all together. We don't just focus on one when we're teaching. How can we read text critically? Love reading, okay. What about how do we scaffold and mediate and facilitate learning in our classrooms? How do we teach independent learning strengths so they don't rely on you all the time as a teacher, that you are enabling them and empowering them in your teaching approaches? We're also going to look at the learner-centered type approach, especially using communicative language teaching. We're going to go into that and see what that's about. And then finally, how to assess formatively, summatively, and continuously. Okay, all those ticks, all those things that are important to show that they have actually moved on. So for the CAPS document, this is what it looks like. And we're going to look at, that's grades 10 to 12. We're going to look at this little paragraph, and I'm going to highlight it now, especially that learning to use a language will enable your learners to acquire knowledge. So you're not just teaching them English, you're helping them to acquire knowledge, because they're going to learn for reading for meaning and reading for learning. You're going to help them to express their identities, their feelings, and how to interact with others, and how to manage the world. So if they can use language, they can do all of this. I'm going to highlight a few other things here. Through language, you can show your different cultural diversities, make social relationships and how you express them. And then you're also going to be able to use language to alter constructions of people about you, to broaden them so they understand your identity far more, and also refine and change them. So this is the power of language, what language can do. And if you can't use language, you're not going to be able to do this. So we are equipping our learners to use language for interaction and to shape their world. All right, in a diverse and very tough world it is at times as well. So let's just quickly look at the MCS, the new curriculum statement, which is in the CAPS, and look at grades R to 9, which is what our SPs are doing. First of all, going to be in this semester looking at listening and speaking. So that's the first things we're going to do in this unit 1. As well as reading and viewing. Okay, different genres, different kinds of text, both for information and enjoyment in our classrooms. So that's semester 1. Semester 2, we're going to look at writing and presenting, factual and imaginative type writing that we might have, transactional writing, essay writing, the different kinds and genres we write in, as well as looking at grammar and language structures and conventions, because this is also part of our paper 1 and 2, the grammar paper. So this is also important, but it's only one part of everything else that we are doing, and that'll be in semester 2. We'll be covering the writing and the language structures. FET is about the same, exactly the same. It's listening and speaking, but obviously more complex, a variety of audiences, a variety of purposes, a variety of contexts that they've got to listen to. So it's not only maybe radio, it's also speeches and other ways that they need to listen. Also, reading and viewing is very, very important. And to understand and evaluate those texts critically, not just to read for meaning, but to read critically. How can we equip them for that? Also, again, semester 1, semester 2, again, reading and presenting, also a wide range of purposes. You can think about all the different essays types that you can write, from narrative to discursive to reflective, as well as the various transactional writing, from emails to reports to magazine articles, using various conventions, language type conventions, different registers and different formats. What does the email look like? What does the report look like? What does the brochure look like? And then again, also the language structures and conventions. How can we use these appropriately? What is the correct register? Is it informal? Is it formal? Is it more neutral? Is it more consultative? How do we show that? Is it a very biased account? Is it a very, very fair account? So that's where language structures are more important than just knowing that something is in the past tense or the present tense. Okay, that'll be the next semester. So CAPS, wants our learners to think critically about things. They've got to think, why did someone say that like that? Or why is it written like this? So they need their thinking caps to do that. They need to think and reason about why something is expressed as it is, or why something is said as it is. And this all is very important to the CAPS document again, and we're going to go through this next week in more detail, checking out what CAPS says about thinking logically, thinking critically, and I'll touch on that again this afternoon. So the first approach is looking at a text-based approach to teaching language. You cannot teach language in a vacuum. You can't go into the classroom with no text from which you're going to teach. You have to have a text on which you're going to base your lesson. Even if it's looking at a picture like this, what are you going to use? A chip packet, a biscuit packet to teach that language lesson. So be aware that the different kinds of medias you can use as part of this text-based approach. You can, if you luckily in a school where there's a data projector or there are PowerPoints or there's internet, smartphones, iPads, tablets, you can use different forms of media, but you can also use pictures and visuals, which are also different forms of media in your class textbook and so on. What about the different texts? Is it a visual? Is it a verbal? Is it a listening text? Is it a reading text? Is it an advertisement? What kind of text are you going to use to teach in the language class? Remember, it's text-based. Visual material. Visual is so important. Many of our students are not exposed to cartoons, images, advertisements, to understand facial expressions, to understand nonverbal language, to look at the formatting of things, and you've got to actually expose them to this visual content. Form studies, that's what's all about. Visual literacy, that's what that is all about. And then again, why are you using a chip packet to teach advertising? What is the purpose of using that? Well, I want them to see the color, I want to see them the font, I want them to see the layout, I want to see them the format, I want them to see the words that are used. Who's going to be your audience for a chip packet? I think learners in the classroom will be a very fine audience because they'll be fascinated with that chip packet. So think about the purpose. If it's an email, why am I sending that email? Well, I'm sending them to invite them to this function. It's my audience. It's going to be the parents of the school, whatever it might be. So always be concerned about why you're using that text and who's the audience for. And then last thing is to look at the structure of the language. What is the register we need to use? How formal must it be? What are the language features, the grammar and the vocab we're going to use? So the form, think of an email, the structure it has. Think of a letter, the structure it has. What about the grammar that we use in paragraph 1, paragraph 2? And what kind of vocab do we use? Do we use simple? Do we use complex? Do we use jargon? We need to be cognizant of that as well within these texts. And that's why text-based is so important, because within that text, you can have a study of from purpose and audience to visual to media to all the language structures as well. Let's just have a look at this lovely Coke ad. Okay, share Coke with Josh. Okay, do you want a personalized bottle? Share the Coke with Josh. Okay, so you can do advertising. What media has been used? Okay, it could be a magazine, it could be a video. What is the text? It's a visual text, it's an advertisement. What is the visual material? It's the shape of the Coke bottle, it's the use of the color, the font, the size of the font, the wording, share a Coke with. What about the purpose? Why is Coke doing this? Because they're thinking if people share their Coke with somebody, they'll buy more Cokes. Okay, so the purpose is maybe just sell more Cokes. What is the audience? Maybe it's learners in grades 8 to 12 that would be interested in this. They like to share with their buddies. They like to share with their girlfriend, their boyfriend. The whole idea of having your name on the Coke bottle is very, very appealing. So I can see a lot of you going to find Ayandas and Percy's, whoever you might be, to share your Coke with. And the lovely red color of Coke, of course. The personalized, bold, big font is also something that'll make person look at the question, and the whole questioning structure is them ask questions and how do you answer it. Okay, right. This is a whole thing that came out with Corona last year. It's a site called High Corner Corona. It's very visual. It shows you exactly what you need to take cognizant of to make sure that you are safe when Omicron's out or the Delta variety. Lovely visuals, lovely text that you need to take your students through this. But because it's visual with the verbal, person can understand quite clearly what's going on. But they need to understand the use of the different visual forms that we have in such a cartoon poster type presentation. Very, very simple language. If you don't know about you shouldn't sneeze at people, you can see him sneezing into the crook of his arm. You can see her with the hands and the big cross through it, washing your hands and so on. I notice not many of them wear masks here. So this would be a nice thing to talk about. Why are masks not included in this, how your actions can save lives? Okay, but the whole visual thing. Just talk about being appropriate to your classrooms. Your students, if you look at the Corona one, would your students be able to understand what you're talking about? The words like spread, infection, coronavirus, you might think that they would be, but you might go through all those words to make sure that from prior knowledge, they would have access to those words. But what about the fact about a hotel under the sea, sleeping with the fishes? If your students have never been to the sea or don't swim, is this really a text that will have purpose and meaning for your audience? This was actually from an exam paper. I went to a school to sit in with the teacher, and she used this in a school that came from very sort of deprived background, and I was wondering how appropriate it would be. Okay, so just got to think about, will this text be meaningful to your students? Some of them who can't swim, never been to the sea, let alone into a hotel. So the whole idea of sleeping with the fishes might not be that appealing to them. All right, so just think about that. Whereas maybe taking a selfie is very relevant to them. Okay, if they haven't done it, they've seen somebody doing it, and you can have a whole discussion of why people take selfies, where the selfies come from. Are they dangerous selfies when people take selfies in the car? I've seen that happening. Or is there any other reasons why you should be benefiting from selfies? Okay, and the whole discussion about it. So I think there's a lot of articles written about people to do with selfies, and I think most learners would understand what was happening there. So that might be very appropriate to them. Right, the second point is, remember there's 7 of them, is to integrate our learning using the different outcomes. That is the speaking, the listening, the reading, and the writing, not just to concentrate on one. So let's just look at a poem which is called Me. Okay, so think about how can we integrate all these skills into teaching this little simple poem, Happy to be Me. Blonde is my hair, blue is my eyes. I'm just X years old and just the right size sometimes. My name is Marcel, and as you can see, I'm very happy to be me. Okay, most of the time. So let's just have a look how we can integrate all these LOs, speaking, listening, reading, writing, into this poem. Okay, listening, obviously, you can listen to me reading the poem. It could be listening to someone reciting a poem. It could be a recording of someone doing the poem as well. Then speaking could be you reading the poem. All right, this learner's reading the poem, the reading of their poems, reading of someone else's poems, writing their own poem, and then look at the language structure. All the words that they were filling in were nouns. So in this way, you integrate a bit of grammar into the whole writing of the poem. Did they use any punctuation conventions? Yes, they have. I can see all the full stops. I can see the exclamation mark. Why was in a punctuation form in end of the second last line? Would they insert one so language can come into it, from parts of speech to punctuation conventions? Okay. There's another little cute one about this is me. I'm as colorful as a rainbow, as cute as licorice. I'm as fast as a cheetah. I'm totally cool and amazing. I'm as tall as a tree, by Ida. Okay, so you might say, well, there's not really a rhyming scheme can go here, whereas in the other one I could see it was C and me. You can see the rhyming scheme going here. But there's some interesting nouns that have been used, like rainbow, licorice, cheetah, amazing, tree. All right, so you can see all those words coming out, but you can also see figurative language structures coming here with the use of Similes are as colorful as a rainbow. Okay, and then you could actually go on to figures of speech. You can again look at punctuation forms. How will you present this? You can put them in groups to present this. You get them to write in groups. You can do collaborative thoughts about this. You could do colorful ads. We do a lot of brainstorming. So there's lots of integration you can use. And look at the lovely visual. At the end, they can draw themselves, and you can see the lovely rainbow effect. So you could take one of these words and represent it in some kind of visual text. Okay, using purple writing, which is quite fun as well. So look at teaching onomatopoeia. Okay, same thing can happen. Using integrated onomatopoeia will be lovely for listening, because remember what onomatopoeia is. The word sounds like it's written like it sounds. All right, so mumble, gurgle, belch. Okay, those words, and get them to practice saying it, and maybe to identify what that means just by listening to someone doing it. And there's far more things like zip, cool, laugh out loud, all those things, lol, okay, poof, the onomatopoeia words, but then we'll take them right to cartoons. And I just love Garfield. If you look at the second frame, where he's pushing Odie off the table, and you crash, okay, a lovely use of onomatopoeia. You could think about different other words could come into frame 1 or frame 2, little spittle dripping off Odie's tongue, for the tail swishing in frame 3, so they could add things to that. And here's another one, quite a few of them. There's squish, all right. There's thump, 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 the tail being happy when the dog's tail goes up and down. And here's boink when the ball bounces. Okay, so there's lots of different ways, especially looking at cartoons, thinking of alternative forms of onomatopoeia, where you can practice using sound, using text, using visuals in an integrated manner. Coming on to critical language awareness, we're going to be looking at quite a lot in the second semester. CAPS wants our learners to be critical and engage critically with all texts. That means they mustn't just accept everything at face value. They must challenge ideas. And a lot of our students or learners are not given the opportunity to challenge ideas and perspectives, which has a lot of power relations where they're not allowed to talk back to the teacher, they're not allowed to talk back to their parents. So they often do not get a chance to actually say what they want to say or what they need to say. For them to express their own opinions on ethical issues and values as well, why they think this is good, why they think it's bad, to encourage them to think critically in this manner, provide them for opportunities to express these opinions on values, on anything that needs to be expressed, and not to keep them silent. And just for them to be aware, this is why they must be critical, that often texts carry values that can be negative. Sexist, okay, the way they speak about women, racist, how they speak about different nationalities, autocratic, very judgmental, okay, telling you what you have to do. Or they can be very positive, and sometimes positive can be too positive. But democratic, that means very fair and caring and compassionate in the way that the message is put across. When they use things like euphemisms, when they don't say someone has been fired, you say it's been asked to leave. You don't say someone has failed, which is a very negative word. You say they're repeating standards. So those are ways we can actually say things in a nicer way. But to also be very wary and critical when people use something nice for something that's really not so nice. They can also be very negative. Let's just look at laughter. And different words to describe laughter. If you think of laughter, it's a fun, happy occasion. If I say giggle, is that positive or negative? Well, you say, well, maybe it is positive, but giggling can also be associated with childishness, all right? People that are immature or not. What about if you snigger at somebody? Okay, is that positive or negative? Snigger is normally when I laugh at someone in a horrible way, okay, it's inappropriate, and I make them feel small because I'm sniggering or sniggering. So those are ways that we show a negative to something that is really a happy event. Smiling is normally very positive. Jesting is joking with people. Tittering can also be quite negative. chuckling is normally quite a happy thing. So just remember that even with a word like laughter, the way you do it, even the way you smile sometimes can be a negative or a positive thing, and the word you use will come out like that. So learners need to identify what values are being expressed. Are they positive or negative values? How are they expressed? Maybe they are expressed, a negative thing is expressed very positively. I was reading an article by Jonathan Jansen yesterday. He was tackling quite tough things happening in South Africa, the lack of hospital care, in, I think, a very positive manner through the words he was using. And it was quite an emotional account where you can talk about something that's quite tough, but you can talk about it in a way that is not breaking people down. So in this way, he was using language to empower rather than to disempower. Although those people were battling with no medical care, the way he expressed what was happening to them was quite empowering, and what that care they were receiving was empowering. So let's just think about this. Has language ever excluded you? Think about that. Would you say yes? Especially when you didn't really understand what somebody was saying, you felt quite excluded. Sometimes we speak in code and we exclude people. Jargon can do that, especially think about golf jargon. If you say you're going to tee off, you hit it on the fairway, I hit an eagle, I hit a birdie, I used a club, I used a putter, I used a wood. If someone does not know what you're talking about, they might feel quite excluded by that conversation. Think about medical terminology. And sometimes people do it purposely to actually exclude others, or they change the language. You start speaking closer to me and I don't understand what you're saying. I might catch a funa or a bala, but I might not know what you're saying. So you are excluding me as well. Okay, so here's a visual of someone being excluded. I mean, it says UFS welcomes you, but the student looks like there's behind these gates, there's a lock, there's a chain, and she's very much been barred from that area. And it's what language can do to people. So CAPS says that you've got to be aware of social justice within your classroom and how you use language to include or exclude your students, and within the classroom, how that can happen within your language teaching. I think one of the ways is not permitting people to use their mother tongue. And in this day and age, multilingualism can happen in the classroom. Although we want to practice the target language, we have to allow understanding sometimes for people to use their mother tongue to gain that understanding. And we model the language and we scaffold them till they can use the target language independently. This is another example of how to be aware of language critically. When we're greeting others, do we say ladies, gentlemen, ma'am, sir, girls, guys? And it says they avoid those terms because sometimes you are not considering everybody. I am a Survivor fan, and I was watching American Survivor, and Jeff said, when I say coming guys, do you feel that it's wrong? Because I'm addressing the girls too with using the word guys. And they said yes. So he's now changed it to come in, or coming, not saying coming guys. So just be careful how you use words, because you might exclude others. So use things like thanks friends, have a great night, because that covers both male and female. Good morning folks, it covers both men and women. Hi everyone. And for you, not him, her, can I get you all something? It becomes quite inclusive. So in this way, we become gender sensitive, so we're not excluding others. Often in contracts, we'll just have he. So if you're a female signing a contract and only has he, and you're a she, is that legal? So just think about using men are all doctors and females are all nurses when we start excluding people because based on gender. So we try and remove these assumptions, and we respect that people are all parts of groups, and we are gender sensitive about them. Also, the use of pronoun often excludes. If I say you, hers, they, everyone, him and them, I'm separating them from me, because me and my and we and ours is more inclusive. They and them and you are all on the other side. So it's an exclusive way of addressing people. And that's what it makes people feel like. You are excluding them when I speak about they and us. Okay, the girls there together are us, she is her. Okay, and she's been excluded. But again, in semester 2, we'll go into this in more detail. So the teacher, your job is to scaffold and mediate learning in your classroom. This part of the job of being a teacher. So you're going to guide and you're going to help your students to gain that knowledge when they learn. It's like scaffolding on a building. As they're building up, they put that around the building. When the building's finished, they can take it away. And you do the same in your classroom. So you can do this by giving examples. So advertisements, you give them different examples. You can ask them questions. Why did you like that color red in the advertisement? What was the color yellow signifying? Sunshine and happiness. You give them guidance. Look at the format of the words, or how did the font change from this line to that line? So you guide them in their understanding of advertising. You give them criteria, what they need to look for, like a checklist maybe. You can look at font size, font color, font logo, slogans, the visual, the wording, are the questions, are the exclamation marks. So they know what to look for. You show how you evaluate that advertisement at the end. You help them find key points and underline them in a sentence, especially the topic sentence. You help them make lists, that they use the same type of verb at the start of a list so that the list is parallel in instructions like read, refer, write. They use the right words. You help them to read instructions. I know my students often battle with my assignments. I'm trying to make my instructions clearer so that you can know what to do. Then once the scaffolding is done, they become more independent learners. They know what they need to do, and you can take away all your help, and they become more independent learners. So you start by modeling, then you start guiding them, showing them, explaining. Then there's a gradual release like your parents do with you. And eventually you are the independent student able to do everything yourself. And that's what we must aim for. So think about it. What strategies can you use in your classroom to develop vocab? Okay. Brainstorming, looking at different texts, underlining words you don't know, underlining similar words, underline antonyms. How do you get your students to read for enjoyment? A lot of students hate reading. So how can I change them around? Offer them different kinds of text, shorter, easier, different, appropriate, relevant to them. How can I help them to enjoy reading more? How can I help them to analyze advertisements? What different strategies can I do? So here's a little task for you. I want you to think of those 3 activities: develop vocab, reading for enjoyment, or analyzing advertisement. Just think for one of them. What 5 activities could you do in your classroom to develop one of those? Okay. And this is where you're going to go to. Click on that little link there. I'll also put this on Canvas for you, Answer Garden. And all I want you to do is click on that link and then go and just type in your 5 activities. You can do them separately, you can do them together. Might be brainstorming, it might be doing a flow chart, it might be doing a dialogue, it might be looking at different advertisements, it might be cutting out advertisements. What would you do to help learners to achieve that activity? Thinking about the reading, speaking, listening, and writing. Think about those 3 things to make it an integrated type of activity. I'll speak about this later. Okay, strategies for learning. How can we develop our strategies so they become better without us having to scaffold them all the time? How can we develop their learning, teaching and learning strategies? Example is reading, and many students hate reading. I think it's all the phones and the digital things that they're involved in. So what we can do is by helping them or giving them the skills of how to skim and scan, which are our speed reading type of actions. Skimming headlines to identify those main ideas. That can be quite a fun activity. What about dictionary work, where they've got to scan, looking for certain words and then find the meanings? What about when I give them instructions? How can they read them and show me how they can get to my house afterwards? Turn right, turn left, take the T junction. so they can arrive at their destination. So these are different ways you can equip them to actually use speed reading techniques to make sense of text. Get them to evaluate their reading speed. Remember, the slower you speak, the harder it is for people to understand you, and the slower you read, the harder it is for you to understand the text. So let them go into any of those two sites. Why don't they try and check their reading speed? Okay, it might be a fun activity. For instance, most people speak at about 240 words a minute. And if you're able to speak at that speed, you are an average reader. If you speak very slowly, your comprehension goes down to 50%, and you are an insufficient reader. If you're reading at 300 words a minute, and this is where university students should be able to read, your comprehension increases to 80%. Isn't that amazing? The faster you read, the more you understand, and you are classified as a good reader. Okay, so if you speak at 300 words a minute, you can comprehend more, 80%, and you'd be classed as a good reader. Double that, 700 words a minute. 1,000 words per minute you are reading at, you're comprehending 85%. So 400 is not too bad. You're comprehending 80%, and you'll be an excellent, accomplished reader if you can read at that speed. So if you think about our students and our learners, think about their reading speeds, and the more they read, the faster they read, the better they're going to comprehend, and the better readers they're going to be. There you go. Those are the two things. I think go for the 400. Also teach them about content pages, indexes, reference books, library catalogs, keywords for Google searches. Get them to do a Google search for certain things. They actually can see the importance of keywords. Identify keywords in a passage, and then go and find different sources based on those keywords. Yes, reading like this, the faster you read, the more you understand, and the better your comprehension is with that. Or the slower you read, the more you're going to fall asleep, and the less you're going to understand, and you're going to be regarded as an insufficient reader. Have you ever tried when you're studying and you're reading so slowly to understand that next eventually your brain gets so bored that you actually fall asleep? So remember, the slower you read, the less you will understand. Okay. So let's put reading complexity. So adults read at 200 to 250 words a minute. College students, where you are, you should be reading at 300 words a minute. We speak at 160 words a minute, usually, but we think at 1,000 to 3,000 words a minute. So you can see how slow reading and speaking really is. Reading is faster than speaking. So when I read, I'm going faster than when I speak. So if you're speaking very slowly, or reading very slowly, the brain becomes quite bored because it can do this at 3,000 words a minute. And then the listener starts daydreaming, planning their menus, arguing with the speaker, because they're totally bored. So remember, when you present in the classroom, don't speak too slowly, because your students are going to fall asleep. All right, and they're not going to understand what you're saying if you're going so slowly, and they're going to lose concentration. What about reading complexity? Students must be able to discern different sounds of words. They need to know the phonics of that. Interpret various combinations of letters, sounding out new and unfamiliar words. They should be able to do that. If they cannot associate sounds with the letters, obviously reading difficulties are going to happen. So they need to have this phonics. They need to know how to sound out words, and they need to see combinations of letters, and so understand. It's always very hard if it's not your first language. If just the language is even harder. I know I can speak Afrikaans, but reading it for me or writing it for me is more complex. I have to think about it more, and sometimes I'm quite bad at it because it's not the same as speaking. So speaking English is not the same as reading and writing. This needs practice too. Okay. Right, so you think you know the sounds, and yeah, in isiXhosa, the Q sound is a click, the H sound isn't h, it's ha, okay, so not knowing the language you're not even going to know how to say that. The inquiry, okay? I don't even think I'm saying it correctly. The use of sounds, the sound with, I'm going with you. Afrikaans people sometimes battle with the sound and they'll say, I'm going with you, okay? And someone might not understand what they are saying. So just remember where I come from, PE, yes, this might cause a bit of confusion in people, especially if it's not just knowing the languages, knowing the different sounds in the different languages. Right, we come into 6, we've got 7 to do, I'm nearly finished. To make sure that our language is learner-centered, not the teacher needing to learn how to speak, but the students, the learners learning how to speak. And this is why communicative language teaching as an approach is so important. This is what assignment 1 is based on. So CLT is an approach where you convey meaning and ideas. And this is more important than getting it right, okay, the grammar right. So if I can say, I'm going with you and you understand me, that's fine because you've conveyed your idea and meaning. So it's not about grammatical correctness, it's more about getting your meaning across. So CLT is giving your students a chance to make errors, but speak in a meaningful way. So you're going to emphasize the language to communicate. That's what's more important in various contexts like interviews, shopping, gardening, directions. They're going to perform different tasks using that language, following instructions for social interaction. So you have to set up situations where they can actually practice the language in a communicative way and speak to each other because they have to get this meaning across. So they need to have a reason to communicate. They've got to go and interview somebody. So they've got to have the questions and the answers that they need to perform. And you as teacher must provide opportunities for them to practice with the target language. Okay, so you mustn't make them feel afraid to use the target language, but let them practice. Maybe the first time they can do it in their own mother tongue, and the second time around, they translate or use it in English or the target language. And here's just one example. You can go around the class. I'm so frustrated when, okay, or I'm so happy when, or I'm so sad when. They can do this in group works and they all have to write down the different words or the different meanings and they can report this back to everybody. I'm so happy when. Different groups can be doing different things. The rest of the groups can add other words to that. This gives them a reason to communicate, which is going to be quite fun. What about texting? Okay, our students text on WhatsApp all the time. We've got the sender, which is a communicative approach. The receiver is who I'm sending it to, and the medium using my laptop or my cell phone, my iPad, my tablet. And the message is, the movie starts at 9. Can you drive us? Maybe it's to a mother or father. Yeah, be there by 8:30. Then what is the feedback? Okay, so you can ask them to do a little dialogue, imagining they're using their smartphones or their iPads or their computers or just a telephone to get them to interact, because they have to respond to different questions. Okay, so think about being very communicative. We're going to be looking at communicative teaching as well. I think it's next week or the week after. Finally, assessment, okay, formative and summative. The summative is always at the end. It's the final, where we draw conclusions about the student's knowledge. Do they have enough understanding of what the content was about? Look at this maths formula. All right, let's see how much you remember. Do they know how to do that? So this is where you assess them summatively. And this is normally done at the end of the course, and it's obviously of limited value because the students cannot take that information and improve on what they already know. So it can't be used to help them achieve anymore. So this is where summative has a disadvantage because it's got limited value. It's only for promotion or demotion that it's used, but the students can't develop further. Whereas formative helps to improve learning because you've done it like that, therefore you can improve for the next assignment because you know how to do it. You need to improve with, I'm doing summative, I'm using it to grade you, to fail you or to pass you. And this is quite a nice ladder, levels from formative, all the rungs. formative, leading to the final summative. So it's nice that they all build up to the top, and that's where we finally assess them. Well, what about you? What about your TEFS, TEFF and S assessments? Let's quickly look at that. And I've highlighted the first one. Your first one is assignment 1, units based on unit 1, and it's looked at, you're looking at communicative language teaching. It's a case study. It's from Ferreira. FETs do the different one to the SPs, and that's due on the 10th of April. There's a class section going on. It's looking at are CLT practices being used in the classroom, and you think of pedagogical reasons why they're not or why they are. I've already uploaded this assessment guides on Canvas, as well as assessment 1 details. So it's all on Canvas. If you go to assignments, you'll see it there, the actual question, the actual assignment, as well as the actual submission links are also already at this point on Canvas. Okay. And then you can see the first assessments out of 25%. Assignment 2 is also out of 25%. The biggest assignment is going to be a presentation on genre, which is the reading section, unit 3, which is 30%. That is 80%, okay, of your mark. Assignment 4, excuse me, is a reflection on your teaching observation. So I will talk about this again, because you have, when you go to your first TP, you actually have to observe a teacher teaching, and your reflection essay will be based on that experience. If you're not doing TP, you might have to make an appointment with someone to go and watch their teaching so that you can write this reflection essay. But we'll talk about this. If you've got a problem, you can let me know. It's only 10% of your mark. And assignment 5 is your participation mark, which is the 10 online tracking tasks, 1% each that you're going to do this semester. Will also count a lovely 10%. Okay. So what's next? Yes, you don't know. I love cartoons, and here we have Tiger, and he says, I taught Stripe how to whistle. Now Stripe is the dog, frame 1. Tiger says, I don't hear him whistling. Okay, let's listen to it. He says, I said I taught him, I didn't say he learned it. And this is what happens in our classrooms often. We teach until we're blue in the face, and do our students actually learn anything? So what are the approaches we use? What are the practices we use so that our learners learn what we are trying to teach? And this is where we're going to move into the curriculum CAPS, Curriculum and Assessment Policy Statement for the NCS, National Curriculum Statement. And this provides us with a structured and clear practical way of helping teachers to unlock the power of curriculum statements. Okay, you can't teach without knowing what's happening in CAPS, and we're going to try and interrogate it slightly next week. So I'm going to say bye for now. It's from a lovely, warm, sunny Port Elizabeth. I hope you've all settling in well in week 1. If you have any queries, please text me, not text me, email me. And hope I can sort out any kinds of issues you're experiencing, but I'm hoping you're settling well into this first week, and you're finding your feet on Canvas. Okay, ciao for now, take care, and stay safe. Stopping the share, exiting, and say bye.